welcome back. And on this edition of Innovate Africa, we look at what high schools could be versus what they currently are. I interviewed a couple of episodes ago, had a chat to the CEO of Generation Schools. He was talking about micro-credentialing. So basically getting students at high school to start earning degrees and credits. But it was a generic chat, so I thought today I would hop right into it and find out more and give you more insight into how they go about doing that. And running that for the school, or at least Sandra De Abreu, you are very involved in this. Let's talk a little bit about the purpose of the Science Institute and what you guys actually do, especially as it relates to micro-credentialing for students.
So the reason for SCI is we needing to open up various streams for our different individuals going to school nowadays. So it's a unique pathway. We can't view the child as we always did in the same way, where everybody's set to go through your matric and you're going to do your geography, you're going to do your second language, you're going to do your Afrikaans potentially, or mathematics. This is a unique pathway. So it is our international access qualifications that allows students to finish matric with an NQF level 4 matric equivalent in, for example, a business qualification. So they can fast track their qualifications. It's also asynchronous. So we think, the earth needs to go around the sun for us to be able to write a matric exam or sit high stakes examination. This qualification allows for flexibility. It allows for students to build up a portfolio of evidence to then submit. So there isn't high stakes examination. And as I'm speaking, you can understand then all of a sudden it opens the doors for so many more of our students, specifically here in South Africa, in terms of just the context that we find ourselves in.
Okay, let's talk about the range of qualifications that you have. Are they mainly business oriented? Can you give us some more insights into that?
Okay, so we start at an NQF level 4, which, if you understand, is your matric exiting qualification. And we go all the way up to PhD level if we have students. So we've got two of our students now who are completing their business honours degree, their final year, NQF level 8, if you had to look at it at a South African level, doing on our SCI pathway, doing this qualification in business.
Now, Sandra, you'll definitely get to know us a lot better on Innovate Africa. We love stories, we love storytelling. So what are some of the stories that you can share about the work that you're doing and the successes to date?
Well, what we've been able to see with this additional program or pathway for students is students who would not necessarily fit in your traditional mainstream schooling approach, where perhaps they are failing for various different reasons, can't sit high stakes examinations. They are not dumb, quote unquote, as we understand it to be. They just learn differently. They think differently. This pathway allows them to move into a qualification that still allows them to finish matric and then fast track onto potentially going into their degree. Whereas if they went the mainstream traditional way, there are so many caps on that and systems in place that potentially wouldn't even allow them to exit with a matric equivalent. We've had students, I've worked closely with them, who are now able to start their degree where mainstream would have failed matric.
Now, you mentioned all the NQFs, the NQF 8. Can students actually go to university after obtaining these NQF levels, the honours degrees or general degrees that they get at school?
So NQF level 8, as we understand it, you would then be able to interchange into a university, but understand, once again, South Africa is limited in their approach to how we view qualifications. When you move institutions, you are only able to move 50% of those credits across. And so that's why this pathway is geared. These qualifications are stackable. So you don't finish 1 year and then you don't go anywhere. You finish each year with an NQF level. And so if you want to take a gap year, if you want to stop at that level, that's perfectly fine. But if you go to our traditional universities, as you understand it, you into a degree program, you have to complete the full 3 years to exit with a certificate or an NQF level of some sort.
I sit on a university board, and one of the biggest challenges I always put on the table is how long it takes to get an NQF accreditation. Personally, I think we should move towards certifications, which are industry related, and I really think you keep up with the double exponential growth of technology by doing that. What's your take?
So spot on. I think traditionally industry looked for your degree qualifications. But the way the world is moving and how fast things are changing, we are needing to move with that. And that's where those micro credentials come in, those smaller, shorter certification classes and courses come in. And so that's where we are moving. And SCI has opened up those doors to allow us to fast track certification, to allow us to gain qualifications on a much quicker scale, so that you can complete a year and then go off and do some micro learning, some micro credentials, gain your work experience, to then come back to maybe finish your degree, but it allows for that flexibility in that. So yes, I think traditionally we looked for the degree, and certain industries are still needing that, but we are moving more and more away to those shorter, more flexible, asynchronous qualifications.
Sandra, a lot of young people fall through the cracks at school because everything seems to be academically focused. The big question though is, can SCI help those who aren't as academically on top of things, but they've got other skills?
Absolutely. I think that is exactly what it does. And don't get confused with picking up the students who fall through the cracks, insinuating that these children are any less than. It is just simply that they learn differently, that they've got external circumstances that might have led them to not be able to finish a high-stakes examination, for example. So this is exactly what the SCI program does. It opens up those pathways for those individuals who just need a different style of learning. It's not to say it's easier. It's the easier route to take. It is just different. And so with the difference, it allows for all those students who couldn't sit those examinations or get that final matric to do it this way, and at a faster pace, and potentially end with a degree.
The one thing I think is going to be important for the future is proof of work. You can have a big fancy qualification, but if you can't prove what you can do, whether it be in the technology space or elsewhere, then I think a lot more people at least will struggle. What do you do when it comes to balancing the academics and the training you do with the proof of work?
So we've amalgamated the two, academics and then also the practical proof of work, because you're spot on when you say that proof of work is actually what's going to land you the job one day. And so programs like the Junior to Giant program, which is a mentorship program which allows students to apply themselves in the real working world, where we simulate working environments, we get in master classes, we get professionals to teach, we go on job shadowing experiences, all the stuff that actually makes us able to apply ourselves one day. That's what we incorporate. So yes, you've got the theory, we're learning, we're going to do our academics, but then what are you going to do with it? How are you going to stand up in front of a boardroom and deliver a presentation eloquently with confidence? And those are the kinds of masterclasses, mentorship sessions that we incorporate into the SCI program and into the whole brand of Generation Schools, really. It's making what you learn practical.
There are also so many qualifications to choose from. How do you go about choosing the right qualifications for your learners to absorb, to study, to get credentialing in?
So what is the fundamental basis of any industry? It's understanding how business works. And that's where we started. I studied psychology. I was going to be the psychologist. Beautiful. I got my BA, I went on to honors, I got loads of practical work. I can tell you anything there is about the human mind. Ask me about business. I wasn't taught that. That wasn't in my curriculum in school. I didn't have it in my BA or honors years or any other teachings I had after that. And so for me, if I could have left matric with a foundation of understanding business, with that business acumen to be able to apply myself into the psychology world, I would be, I think, a lot further ahead in terms of business than where I am now, but I have nonetheless learned a lot along the way. So that's where we started. What are you needing to enter into the working world? You need to understand how a business works from start to finish. Stuff that is not necessarily taught in our national curriculum, independent curriculum. That is where we started. And from there we branch out. So start with the business, understand how to put yourself, your idea, your product, your service into industry, and go from there.
The work you're doing is groundbreaking, but it also deviates from the norm. And there might be lots of parents who go, oh, academics is the way to go. Yes, you do deal with the academics, but there's a huge deviation from it. So how accepting are parents of this?
So when we initially started this, of course, any change brings on fear, unknown, and so there is defense and pushback. So what we've been able to prove over our years of doing this are our success stories. And it's through those stories, those individual stories who have done this pathway, who have gone on to start their careers and being hired by some of the best corporates or biggest corporates in Cape Town and South Africa, we've then been able to prove we've got a track record now. So slowly, I'd say that's changing. I'd say we probably need about 5 to 15 years to still prove this, but the world is changing. Parents are seeing that what they did isn't necessarily applicable to our students today in terms of the job world. Sure, there's so much. I think when you have an opportunity to work with youth, you get up every day knowing that you can change a mindset, you can change a life, and that's you. So working closely with individuals who potentially don't come from a background where they've got people who believe in them, they can see their unique gifts, they can nurture all of that. Being that person, that's what gets me up every morning, knowing that's my perfect purpose here in this world. So just working closely with the student to show them what they are potentially capable of. And then also just making them aware of how lucky they are to have these opportunities. So we move away from a sense of entitlement to, I've got the world at my fingertips, how do I utilize this for my benefit? Giving them those skills, that definitely warms my heart.
Once the students successfully get those credentials, they graduate with those credentials, where do they end up? Do they end up working for someone, or do they start their own businesses? Just give us an idea as to what generally happens next.
So definitely a mix, which is beautiful. It speaks to the program. It's not just geared for one student. We've had students go into industry, finance world. We've had students start their own business. We have students who are working currently and then also start a sideline business on the side, trying to build that. So there is an array of different industries. I couldn't say that it's one that we kind of funneling all our students into. But yeah, there's loads of different success stories from this.
Now, as you're working in this groundbreaking space, you learn a lot of new things. What are some of those key learnings that you've developed since starting with this program, getting it off the ground, and turning it into a success?
I think to challenge your way of thinking and viewing and seeing the world. I think being a part of something like this has allowed me to challenge my own status quo, to my understanding of how everything should fit together. And I think really if you can question what you think is right and just in this world and look at it from different perspectives, you'll see that actually there isn't any wrong and right way. There's just the way for the individual, and we need to be open to that. So box thinking, move away from that. And that is actually the hardest thing.
Finally, you're a mother of 2 daughters. You are helping other people's children prepare for the future. How's your work impacted on the way you view your daughters, their future, and the possibilities that lie ahead?
I think it's excited me. The reason I say that is because I think there's so much pressure as a parent to know that your child has got to get onto this pathway and end a certain way. And so what this has allowed me to see is that even if my child doesn't fit the mainstream understanding, the traditional way of doing things, how I was brought up, there is still a way. And it doesn't mean that it is failure or the child doesn't fit. It means that there is still a way. And so that excites me because I get to co-create that future with them. I think what this has allowed me to see is that there are multiple end goals. And your focus as a mom then can move to just understanding the unique individual that was created by you, with everything they bring to the table, their personality, their skill sets, their vocational interests, all of that we can work with rather than trying to fit them into a system. We understand that there is a system for everyone.
Sandra De Abreu, thank you very much for the time you've taken to be with us. Thank you for the work you're doing in moulding young people for the future. And that's really what we need. As Africa, we can build the world, but we need people like Sandra to give our young people the right skills so that they can take the bull by the horns and take on the world. I'll see you on Innovate Africa next week.